Welcome to GoCast, a podcast designed to inspire and equip pastors and leaders to lead soul-winning churches. We have a mission to go and make disciples. This is GoCast.
Hey everyone, hope you guys are all doing well. I want to take a few minutes and introduce you to a new productivity program that I recently discovered called Scrum. I had a conversation in November of 2019 with a pastor friend of mine, Pastor Rich Conte, who pastors in Manila in the Philippines. He asked me this question. He says, hey, have you ever heard of the system called Scrum? I had never heard of it before, but I went and began researching it and looking it up, and I was enthralled by it. And we've been experimenting with it a little bit in some of our teams. And this is really a system I'm excited about introducing and talking about across the board at our church. And it is really exciting. I think it's exciting. It's going to allow us to do some amazing things. So I want to take a few minutes to introduce to you what the program is, how it works, but really what the benefit of this is. I was looking for a method that would allow us to be, number one, and in your notes, more productive. We just always looking for ways to be more productive, to do things more efficiently, better, more productively, just being that, which leads us to number two, looking for a program that's going to be more efficient. Efficiency simply means more productivity delivered in a timely manner. So we want to be more productive. We want to get more done. We want to be more efficient. We want to be active, but at the same time in a timely manner. Number three, this program allows us to be more focused. There's lots of things that can distract, lots of things that can keep us off track, but we are looking for a program that's going to allow us to be more focused. And you'll see in a moment that Scrum really is a system that allows us to be more focused. And it's amazing how more productive you can get, how more efficient you can get when you're more focused. The fourth benefit is we need to be better in communication. And this is a big part. We've got reporting systems that are in place and we've got communication, but still the constant frustration that we hear, in our organization is, communication or a lack of communication and knowing we're a big organization. And so we have lots of opportunities for breakdown in communication. So we just need to get better in communication. And I believe Scrum allows us to do that. The fifth benefit is that it allows us to be more creative. So if we can get more productive, more efficient, better in communication, more creative, we can get all of these things more focused. All of these things are going to be a huge benefit. And this one system, Scrum, allows us to do all of this. And like I said, we've experimented with this in our service programming team and some of our other teams a little bit, and we've touched on it. But I want to look at over the next number of months implementing the Scrum system all across the board in every single one of our teams. And it's going to allow us to have these 5 benefits everywhere we go. So let's go right to our notes. Let's look at how to implement Scrum. I'm going to give you a basic overview of what it looks like, some of the language that's involved, and we've got notes provided for you that allow you to follow along, write notes alongside, kind of get an idea so that you can review, go over this, and then we will begin implementing it. At the end of this, I want to begin to teach us how we can specifically implement this in our church. All right, so how to implement Scrum. Number one, you have to pick a product owner. Okay, so you have to pick a product owner. A product owner is the one with the vision of what you're going to do, okay, or what you're going to make or what you're going to accomplish. So the product owner is somebody who has the vision of saying, okay, this is what we want to accomplish. This is what we want to do. It's the person with the vision. The product owner also takes into account the risks and the rewards and they also are responsible for what is possible or what is not possible. They're responsible for what can be done or what can't be done in a specific period of time. They're kind of the gatekeeper of what is possible for the team, the vision of what needs to be done. And they are the ones that are passionate about the outcome. All right. So the product owner is the visionary. So we first have to have a product owner for whatever Scrum or system that we are working. That's the product owner. Number two, you have to pick a team. Because you have the product owner, has a vision, but now secondly, you got to pick a team. The team are the people that are actually going to do the work. So you have to ask the question, who are the people that are actually going to do the work? This team needs to have all of the skills needed to make the product owner's vision and make it a reality. And here's something that's important, is that teams should be small. They should be a maximum of 9 people, a minimum of 3 people. So you want a small team of 3 to 9 people is basically the general rule of thumb. That team should be, wide variety of people with the necessary skills to be able to get the product owner's vision accomplished, all right? But you have to have a team. I think it's worth mentioning here that when it comes to the team, is that based on, and we'll get to what the Scrum is or what a sprint is, we'll get that language in a moment, but basically we want to be able to, the team doesn't have to be a set team for life. It could be a specific team for a specific vision, for a specific product, or for something that we want to do. That could be a unique team, and it could change on a regular basis. Just basically, we want to get the right people on the bus and the right seats of the bus to be able to accomplish what needs to get done. So number 1, we got a product owner. Number 2, we picked a team, a small team, 3 to 9 people. Number 3, you got to pick a Scrum Master. Now, I know this is a bizarre language, and it's something when I first heard it, I was like, okay, we can change the verbiage of that. After having read the books and did that, they actually questioned that, the founders of this, and they questioned that language as well. But for the sake of consistency, we're going to stay with that language, because this is just, it kind of differentiates what the purpose of this person is. So you have to have a Scrum Master, and we can make fun of that all we want, but we're just going to keep with that language. A Scrum Master is the person who is going to coach the rest of the team through the Scrum. Okay, so, and that's going to help the team eliminate anything that's slowing them down. Okay, so the Scrum Master is somebody that is responsible to coach the team through the Scrum, and is going to help the team eliminate anything that is going to slow the team down. So this person needs to be administrative. This person needs to be skilled in multiple areas so that they can, if they see something slowing down, they can problem solve in multiple different members of the team and be able to kind of have a general overview of what everybody does and know how everybody does things and how that works, so that they can be the person that keeps this thing going. The product owner is the visionary. The Scrum Master really is the manager, or the administrative person, the detailed person that's going to be able to get this done. Now, just in the language of Scrum, and I'll take a break here for a moment from our notes. The word Scrum is, and I should have said this at the beginning, but I'll just explain it to you. Scrum is a term that is used in rugby. If you're a fan of rugby or understand rugby at all, Scrum is where everybody, and this happens in rugby, where everybody kind of congregates and get, all heads down. They do what is called a scrum. There's this battle going on, and it doesn't seem like much is happening to the outside viewer, but underneath there's a lot of battling going on, moving the ball and positioning. Everybody on the team has a role, interlocking and working towards getting possession of the ball. That's what this is about. This is about teamwork. This is about productivity. This is about everybody focused, everybody working on the same thing at the same time. And while on the outside it might not see that everything's going on, there's a scrum that's going on where everybody's playing a role. There has to be a visionary that's giving the idea of what we're wanting to accomplish as a team. There needs to be a team that are specific gift sets that are going to accomplish what the vision is. And then there needs to be a Scrum Master who's going to kind of be the coach that's going to ensure that what needs to happen is happening and in a timely fashion and effective fashion, which leads us to number 4. Number 4 is, next thing you need to do is create and prioritize a product backlog. Okay, so the word backlog is going to be huge for us, but we need to create and prioritize a product backlog. A backlog is a list at a high level of everything that needs to be built or needs to be done to make the product owner's vision a reality. So the backlog exists and evolves over the lifetime of the Scrum or of the product. So it's basically the roadmap. Okay, so it's a list. You got to make a list of everything that needs to get done. At any point, the product backlog is basically the single definitive view of everything that could be done by the team ever, and then you want to put it into kind of an order of priority. So, and only a single product backlog exists. So this means that the product owner is required to make prioritization decisions across the entire spectrum. So the product owner should basically consult with the team to make sure that they are representing everything that can be done. So basically how this works, there's a product owner that has a vision. Okay, they say, I want to, in our settings saying, okay, our vision is we want to put together a special service on this weekend. So that's the vision. This is what it's going to look like. Then you have a team is saying, okay, in order for us to be able to produce that service, that product, we need to have the team that's going to be able to do that and to execute that. And so what skill sets are we going to need to be able to put on that service? Then you have a Scrum Master who's going to be able to kind of drive the ship and keep the team on focus and make sure there's no distractions. Who's going to be able to ensure that that gets done? Then you want to put together your backlog. That backlog is a list of everything that needs to get done, broken down as small chunks as possible that needs to get done in order to have that outcome, that final product. And you want to list down everything you can possibly think of we need to do this, we need to have this, we need to do that. And you basically, the visionary, the product owner, the team, the Scrum Master all sit together in a meeting and basically create a list of all the to-dos that are possible. And you want to break it down as small as possible. Like I said, you don't want to have, big, well, we got to produce a service, too big. Break it down. What do we need? Well, we need music. Well, it's too big. Break it down. Well, we need this many songs. What songs? We need to create this. We need to what list? Break it down as much as possible, as small as possible to be able to get it done. Okay, so that's creating the backlog, which leads then, you want to put those in priority and saying the list of order of what needs to get done, which leads then to number 5, which is you want to refine and estimate the product backlog. Okay, so the estimate is the big part of it. So you want to refine and estimate it. So once you've created all your list, you're going to look at that and saying, okay, well, that's too big, that's too small. We can organize this, but we want to estimate the product backlog. So the estimate is this. It's crucial that the people who are actually going to complete the items in the backlog estimate how much effort it will take to get that list done. Okay, so the team should look at each backlog item, each individual item, and I'd recommend maybe writing your backlog item on sticky notes, and just each item would be on a sticky note and just kind of set them aside, and then because then you can look at each one of those items separately, and you estimate, you look at that item, each item, and saying, is this actually doable by the time that we want to get this done? Is this doable? And is there enough information that we have as a team, as a product owner, as the Scrum Master, to complete that item? Is that item small enough to estimate or to break down and to do that? Or do we need to break it down into smaller chunks? And is there a definition of done? Okay, so a definition of done is that everyone agrees on what standards must be met and in order for something to be called done. Usually the product owner because it's their vision, has the final kind of stamp and saying, yeah, that's good, that's done, marks it done. So you just need to be able to define what done is. The other questions you can ask in this is does this create visible value? So every item that we're adding, is this going to add value to our final outcome, or is it necessary? Do we need to have it or not? If that's not necessary, then we don't simply do it. But does it create visible value? Now you take a look at the list and you're saying, okay, yes, we've gone through it. We've gone through the order and we've seen what's got value. We understand what done is going to be. We can that. Then we want to estimate basically how much work it's going to take in order to get that done. And the reason why we estimate, we'll set this up in a moment, but you don't want to estimate the backlog in hours because people are absolutely terrible at that. We either underestimate how much time it's going to take, or we overestimate how much time it's taken. None of us are really, experts at being able to estimate how much time it's going to take. I mean, how many of you start a project at home and think, it's going to take 20 minutes? 2 days later, you're still working on it. We're just all of us are terrible at that. So instead of estimating the amount of time it's going to take or the hours it's going to take, it's better to estimate by relative size. So small, medium, or large. Is this backlog item, is it a small that can be done quickly? Is it a medium? It's going to take some time, or is it a large one? That's going to take a lot of time and effort. And I'd recommend, in estimating that and putting an estimate on the backlog, I'd recommend using the Fibonacci sequence. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Fibonacci sequence, it's instead of, we want to assign numbers to estimate small, medium, or large each backlog. Instead of assigning numbers and saying 1 is a small, 2 is a medium, and 3 is a large, we'll sit there and argue over whether it's a 2 or a 3, and whether it's an 8 or a 9, or whether it's a 10, 11. Use the Fibonacci sequence and kind of it's just a little bit more effective, I think, and more valuable that way. So Fibonacci, just for those of you who aren't aware of it, is Fibonacci is a sequence like 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How it works is you take 1, 2, and you add 1 and 2 together, you get 3. Then you add 2 and 3 together, you get 5. So basically, you add 3 and 5 together, you get 8. Basically, you take the 2 previous numbers, add them together, and then you get the next number. The reason why Fibonacci is a good sequence to use for estimating is because the team will sit there and argue over whether this is an 8 or whether this is a 9, on the point value system of how much time, what effort it's going to take to do this. And you'll argue over the minute details. It's a lot easier to say, well, is it an 8 or is it a 13? Is it a 21 or is it a 13? Like, it's a lot easier to say, nah, it's not that big, or it's not this, and a lot easier to make it agreeable on that. But you want to assign a point value now, a value to the amount of work it's going to take for each backlog item, and you want to add a number to that. Okay, which leads us to number 6. And I'll explain all of this, and we'll draw it all out for you in a moment. So hopefully this all locks in. Number 6, sprint planning. Okay, so sprint planning is vital, and the term sprint. Okay, so this is the first of the Scrum meetings that will happen, the team meetings that will happen. Sprint is basically a fixed length of time. Okay, what our vision is going to take. So the team, the Scrum Master, and the product owner all sit down to plan what is called a sprint. So sprints are, like I said, always a fixed length of time that is less than a month. Okay, and for us as a church, most sprints will be a week because we have weekly services. Okay, so we'll say, okay, well, our product is next Sunday's service, and we have a week. So a sprint is a length of time to be able to get that product out. And so for us in our world, it's good. Now we might have a special service, or we might have a special event coming up that we're saying, okay, we can plan that one out by 2 weeks, and we're going to work on this, or we'll plan it out by 4 weeks maximum. We don't want a sprint. We don't want to get longer than that, and you'll understand why in a moment. But a sprint is a length of time to be able to take the vision to done. Okay, so the team looks at the top of the backlog of all the, they got the vision, the backlog, and they forecast how much of it they'll be able to complete in this sprint or in this length of time. If the team has been going for a few sprints, they should take in the number of points they did in the last sprint, and we'll get to that. And the number is known as the team's velocity. Okay, so the reason why we've taken numbers and we've added numbers and basically estimates to all of our backlog is because we're going to take all of our backlog and we're going to add all of those numbers up using the Fibonacci sequence, add all those numbers up, and we're going to have a total number at the end. So I think the first time we did this with our service programming team, I think the number ended up being, the total number of backlog to be able to put together a service was like 140 points. And so we took all of that and said, okay, we got 140 points. We assigned that 140 points to a sprint. The sprint we set as, 4 days. It was basically 4 work days for the week. Can we accomplish those 140 points within this week? And then we talked about it as a team, and myself, as the product owner of the vision of the service. And it's another chance for the team and the product owner to make sure that everyone is kind of on the same page and understands exactly how these items are going to fulfill the vision. Also, during this meeting, we're sprint planning. Everyone should agree on a sprint goal, what everyone wants to accomplish with this sprint. So as we get into this, we say, okay, well, the first one, we had 140 points. Well, the next week we looked at it and we said, we accomplished that, 140 points a lot quicker, and focus was amazing. And we're like, we can take on 180 points next time. And so we did that. But one of the pillars of Scrum is once the team has committed to what they think they can finish in one sprint, that's it. It cannot be changed. It cannot be added to. And the team must be able to work autonomously throughout the sprint to complete what they forecast they could. All right, so that's sprint planning. It's taking all of the backlog, the vision, the backlog, it's assigning a time to it and saying, can we get this accomplished? Which leads us to number 7. Now you want to make, after all this meeting and this planning, this vision, you want to make the work visible. Okay, so make the work visible. It's number 7. The most common way to do this in Scrum is to create a Scrum board with 3 to 6 columns. Okay, so the minimum columns on a Scrum board, you want to make this visible for everybody on the team, this is vital, is a minimum of 3 columns should be, to do, doing, and done. But I'd recommend, for all of our campuses and all of our Scrum teams, that I'd recommend 6 columns that would be, that would work in that. And the 6 ones are, the first column would be backlog, then you'd have a column called blocked, and I'll explain that one in a moment. Then you have to do, then you have doing, then you have review, and then you have done. Okay, so it's backlog, blocked, to do, doing, review, and done. We've used Trello, and many of you have used Trello. Trello is a great form for an electronic Scrum board to do, because you can set up those columns in that way and list on there. Or I'd recommend, if possible, at your campuses, especially if you can have your team in one physical location, I'd recommend a physical board for the Scrum board. And on a physical board, use sticky notes that represent all of the backlog, all of the items that need to be completed, and then the team moves them across the Scrum board into each of the columns as they're being completed one by one. And with a physical board, and the purpose of a visual board is that everybody on the team can see, okay, what's being done, what has been done, what stage of what needs to be done still, what stage of the things are. So everybody on the team can walk into a room or turn on Trello and see exactly who's working on what's getting done. And it's an amazing way to keep focus. It's an amazing way to keep high communication, because I'm not guessing now on what this team member is doing. I can see what they're doing. I can see what they've done. There's high accountability, because now we're watching and we're working at a way that everybody else can see what we are doing, and so we're responsible and accountable not just to our bosses, but we're accountable to a team, and it allows great collaboration with the team, because we can now see where somebody got stalled or stuck or whatever it might be, and we can help and we can keep everything moving. We can see then where the level of speed of which and efficiency in which we're working. So that's why we want to make it visible, which is huge. Which leads us to number 8, which is create a Burndown chart. I know there's lots of language here that I'm giving you, but this is language that we want to use throughout Scrum, and this is why I've given you these notes so that you can constantly review them and look at them. But you want to create a Burndown chart. Okay, a Burndown chart is another way to make work visible, and it's just very helpful. On one axis is the number of points the team has taken into the sprint. So like I said before, the first sprint we ran as a service programming team was 140 points. So we took that number, okay, on the other side is the number of days. So we had 140 points, and then we had 4 days in order to accomplish those 140 points. So every day, the Scrum Master then tallies up the number of points completed, okay, in the day, and graphs them on a Burndown chart. So ideally, there would be a steep downward slope leading to 0 points left on the last day of the sprint. So you start with 140 points, and you accomplish in the first day maybe 30 points. Okay, so then the climb comes down, and you're now at 110 points. Well, then okay, well, we've got 3 days to accomplish this, so we're gonna have to speed things up a little bit. And so the next day we can accomplish 50, or the next day, and eventually on day 4 we should be able to down to 0. And it's another visible way, a Burndown chart, another visible way to say, okay, we're on schedule, we've got to speed it up, or we're on schedule and we're doing just fine. It's just another visible way for the team to do that. All right. Number 9, daily stand-up meeting. Okay, so now we've we've got the product owner, we've picked the team, we've got the Scrum Master, we've created a backlog, we've estimated the backlog, numbered all of that. We've now, we've created all these systems. We've got visible board, we've got the Burndown charts, everything's all there. Now we go to work, and part of that work is a daily stand-up meeting. And this really is the heartbeat of the Scrum system. So each day, okay, at the same time, for no more than 15 minutes, okay, the team and the Scrum Master, doesn't have to be the product owner, but the team and the Scrum Master meet and answer 3 questions. Okay, so it's a stand-up meeting. This is important. So you don't want to sit down because it gets distracting and nobody's focused. You want to have a quick 15-minute max stand-up meeting. Everybody stands in a circle, kind of looks at each other, and the Scrum Master begins to ask each individual in that group 3 questions. And here are the 3 questions. What did you do yesterday to help the team finish the sprint? Okay, so what did you do yesterday? Every person in the meeting says, I did this, and you just kind of go around and everybody answers, I did this yesterday, I worked on this, I did this, and they answer that question. The second question that everyone will answer is, what will you do today to help the team finish the sprint? Okay, so what are you going to do? Not what are you going to do that's not on the sprint board or on the Scrum board. We're not talking about, well, I'm going to, go get groceries, I'm going to do that. That's not part of it. What are you going to do today that's going to help the team finish this sprint? And you list it. Number 3. The third question, everybody answers. The third question is there any obstacle blocking you or the team from achieving the sprint goal? Okay, so is there anything standing in your way, anything blocking you? Which, if there's anything in there that's blocking, that's that block channel on the Scrum board that on there. If there's something that's blocking us or something that we're relying on in order to get the next stage being done, we need this from, this person, or we need this to be done in order for us to get this done. Then we would go around and we talk about this and we say, this is, we need this done. We can put that what's blocking on a sticky note, put it in Trello sticky note and put it on the Scrum board. Okay. And that's it. So the meeting is basically, okay, what'd you do yesterday to accomplish a sprint? What are you working on today? Is there anything standing in your way? Anything blocking you? That's it. That's the whole meeting. If it takes more than 15 minutes, you're doing the meeting wrong. Okay, so what does it help? What this does is helps the whole team know exactly where everything is at in the sprint. Are all the tasks going to be completed on time? We can know this in the stand-up meeting. Are there opportunities to help other team members overcome obstacles or things that are blocking them? There's no assigning of tasks from above. The team is autonomous. They do that. This is huge. This is the autonomous. This is us working together. This is us establishing teamwork. There's no detailed reporting to management. So if we implement Scrum, listen to me carefully, and this is going to be answer to prayer for many of you. If we implement Scrum across the board and we do it properly, we don't need to do reports anymore. We don't need to report again up to what's happening or how our week went and all the rest of it. We can have this basic daily Scrum meeting is going to eliminate all needs for reporting because our communication is going to be so focused and so efficient and so much better. So there's no need for detailed reporting to management. The Scrum Master, okay, this is the manager, is responsible for making the obstacles to the team progress or the impediments that are in the way go away. So this team says, I need to get this done. That Scrum Master is a manager. And when we did this with the service programming team, I was tad on myself. They said, okay, we got to get this done. We're working on this and this and this. And basically they're saying, we need Pastor Kelly's notes in order for us to be able to do this. And so the Scrum Master actually had to come to me and saying, Pastor Kelly, you're holding up the team. And I was the one I was the product owner, the one implementing the sprint, and they're saying, Pastor Kelly, you're holding up. You need to get this done. So that put pressure on me. And I was like, okay, I got to do this. And that was a Scrum Master, not the team, but the Scrum Master came to me and said, we got to get this done. And if you can do this by this time, then this is going to enable them to do, and they're waiting for you to do that. So whatever it might be, whatever that impediment might be, and in that case it was me, then it needs to be helped by the Scrum Master. Needs to help in order to get that to go away. So the daily stand-up, that is vital to the success of this whole system. And it's just a 15-minute meeting. Now, number 10 is the sprint review. So at the end of the sprint, okay, we want to have a meeting with the team that shows what they've accomplished during the sprint. So anyone can come to this meeting, not only the product owner, the Scrum Master, and the team, but anyone who might be interested. So for us, in our case, if we said, okay, we want to do a service review, we're planning this service, we could invite any of one of our staff, or any of our staff could show up, any of our volunteers who are involved could show up. Anybody who's interested could really show up at this meeting. It's an open meeting where the team now demonstrates what they were able to move to done during the sprint. Okay, so the team should only demo what meets the definition of done. So not something that is partially accomplished, but what is totally and completely finished and can be delivered without any more work. Okay, so again, at the beginning, you've defined what the definition of done is. For most of our sprints, it's going to be definition of done is going to be when the product owner, the one with the vision, gives a stamp of approval and says, through the review process and says, yes, that is done. That's what we demonstrate, not the stuff that is not complete. It may not be a complete product, but it should be completed to the feature of done. Okay, so for everybody else to be able to do that. So that's the meeting that happens. That review meeting happens at the end, it's basically a demo meeting, a review meeting that we say, this is everything that we have accomplished in this thing, and we're just kind of demoing our product or our plan or our series, our graphics, the music, everything just kind of gives everybody an overview of what has been accomplished, which leads to the next meeting, which is the sprint retrospective. Okay, the sprint retrospective is different than the review meeting in this, but after the team has shown what they've accomplished during the last sprint, the thing that is done, they sit down and think about what went right. And they also think about what could have gone better. Okay, so this meeting, I would recommend this meeting happening near maybe it could happen right at the end after the review meeting, or sometimes this is really good to do right before the next sprint. And here's why. Because we're going to look at what went right, what could have done better, what is the improvement in the process that they, as a team, can implement right away. And to be effective, this meeting requires a certain amount of emotional maturity and an atmosphere of trust. And here's why. The key thing to remember is that you're not seeking someone to blame. You're looking at the process. Okay, why did it happen that way? Why did we miss that? What could have helped us and what made us go faster? Is it crucial that people as a team, and it's crucial through this, take responsibility for their process and outcomes, and that we seek solutions as a team? Okay, at the same time, people have to have the fortitude to bring up the issues that really are bothering them in a way that is solution-oriented rather than accusatory. And here's why. Is because you'll learn lots about the team through this process and how people handle pressure and how people process and how people do what things. And sometimes we got to just take away our personal preferences and ideas and ego, check our ego at the door and say for the process. We might learn, especially at the early stages, that we assigned some task to somebody that's not in their gift set, and it was frustrating for them, but it was also frustrating for the team. And we need to be able to talk about some things and who's doing what and by when and who did what and who didn't do what, and in a way that's not accusatory but is rather solution oriented for the entire team. The rest of the team has to have the maturity to hear the feedback, take it in, and look for a solution rather than getting defensive. By the end of the meeting, okay, the team and the Scrum Master should agree on one process improvement that they will implement in the next sprint. One process improvement, okay? The process improvement should be then put into the next sprint's backlog, which is why I prefer this meeting, just me personally, to happen just before the next sprint. So let's just say for our church that, our meetings on Monday would be the start of a sprint, and saying we finished our services on the weekend and Monday we're launching into the next sprint. I would say one of the first meetings we do Monday morning would be, let's do our retrospective and look back. Okay, how did last sprint go? What went right? What was really good about it? What went wrong? What could we improve? And then we talk about one thing, one process that we want to improve, and we put that into the next sprint's backlog. That way, the team can easily see if they actually implement the improvement and what effect it's going to have on velocity. This is what's so awesome about this Scrum system, is that if we do this properly, every single week or every single sprint, we should be improving on the previous one. That means we should constantly be making it better. That's one of our culture codes. We want to constantly make it better and get more effective. So the retrospective is to help us do just that. Number 12 is immediately now start the next sprint cycle. We don't just run one sprint and then we take a big break. We immediately start the next vision, the next sprint cycle, and we take the team's experience with the impediments and the process improvements into account, and we immediately go to work with the next vision, with the next to-do thing. All right, so that's a basic overview of sprint. And I've introduced a lot of terminology, a lot of the process, but we start with a product owner. That's somebody with a vision. We pick a team, the people that are going to be able to accomplish what that vision is most effectively. We then have a Scrum Master who's going to be that manager, that coach that's going to be able to drive the team and the process and work through that. We create a backlog or a list of to-dos that in everything that needs to get done in order to create that vision. We estimate each one of that backlog, and we go through all that. We go through all of these processes. We have meetings, we sit down and we plan all this stuff out, and we immediately go to work. And we count velocity, we count the Burndown charts, we do all this kind of stuff. We have daily stand-up meetings, to hold each other to account and report on what's going on. We don't have to do the reports anymore because we're constantly doing this 15-minute meeting, touching base every day. And this is what I did yesterday, this is what I'm doing now, high accountability. And when we do this, we see a lot more focus, we see a lot more communication, we see a lot more productivity, we see a lot more efficiency, we see a lot more creativity, we see a lot more collaboration. It is amazing what can happen. So that's just the overview. But here's how I see it working for us at My Victory. We want to look at this and say, practically, how's this going to work? And where do we do this? I want to see Scrum as a system, now that we've experimented with it and seen it work in one team. I want to see it work across the board because I think it's going to help us improve immensely as a church, making us more effective and more efficient in order to stay on our vision and our mission, which is to reach every available person by every available means at every available time with the gospel of Jesus Christ. We got to go after souls. We want to just be as effective as possible. So here's the basic overview, and this is how I see it setting up. Now, we've just come through COVID and all the craziness of that, and I know a lot of us are eager to go back to normal and do that, but I think this is a prime time for us to say, okay, let's shift and let's create a new normal. Let's create something that is going to be better than before. We need more productivity, we need more efficiency, we need more communication, we need more focus, we need more creativity. We could all get better at that. This is one way that we could do this. So we're going to shift some things around a little bit. We're going to the roles that people play and the seats on the bus they're in might shift a little bit. The reporting systems, the type of communication we've done in the past might shift a bit. So this is an overview of what I envision, and then we're going to open up for discussion and talk and see through this, and we're going to kind of work together as a team to make this work for all of us. So here's overview, and then this is, again, not set in stone, but this is basically an overview of how I see this working, and then we can discuss this and work this through over the next number of weeks and months and probably years as to get more efficient at all of this. Here's what I want to do. In your notes, we're going to create My Victory teams. And this is basically how I see it, in order for us to do the ministry we're doing and to even get better at that. So the first team that I see is our care team or our pastoral team. That's number one. So we have a care team and a pastoral team. The care team, the pastoral team, this is our campus pastors. Okay, that's the campus pastors. They're responsible for people, and providing care and loving on people. This is campus pastors. It's our connect groups. It's our follow-up, that we do with all the people, the newcomers that come, or follow-up. It's our care net, which is creating prayer and care and all those things for people that need it. It's our counseling services. So it's basically anything to do with people and pastoral care. So that's our care team. And so how this looks, and I'll do some drawing for you that forgive me for my art, but how this looks is we basically at each of our campuses, we would have our campus pastor, okay, which would then, the campus pastor would then be basically the Scrum Master or the visionary that would, the product owner at the campus thing, and they would have their team, and they would meet with, then it would be your Connect group leaders or leader, representative of that. I'd recommend if you've got your Connect groups, if you got multiple Connect groups, you could, if you have 3 to 4, maybe have all Connect group leaders there. But if you have more than 4 or 5 at your Connect group leaders out there, I'd recommend having one person represent 4 to 5 or 4 to 8 Connect groups, and then just kind of reporting on that. They would care for those Connect groups. They could do a Scrum with those Connect groups, and then they could report back to you. But however that works, so you got your Connect group leaders, you've got your follow-up people, you have your CareNet people, you have your counseling people, and you maybe have your host teams, okay? And that, so your Scrum meeting, your beginning would be, okay, at the beginning of the week, campus pastors would then host at each one of their campuses a meeting with the Connect group leaders, a follow-up team, and they would basically cast the vision saying, okay, this week, what are we going to do to care for our people more effectively? Let's list all the to-dos of what we're going to do, and some of these will be repetitive every single week. Okay, follow-up team's going to send out emails and phone calls, and the rest. CareNet's going to call this number, these people. Connect groups are going to be doing these meetings, preparing this. Counselors they can report and saying we're doing this counseling. Host teams can say we're preparing this for the service. But basically, some of this is going to be repetitive, some of this will be new. But get specific in all the details. That's that meeting. All right. That's that team. They'd have their meeting. Okay, and then the next team is going to be the family team. So the family team is our children's ministry and our family ministries is what we do. So that is going to be, for all of our campuses, that would be then the children's pastor or the family ministries pastor. So that person, okay, so would be our family pastor, our pastor of family with children. Their job then would be to meet with the nursery worker. Their job would be then to work with, to meet with the children's, the preschool or children's, however you break that down, the youth pastor, the youth meeting, and whatever leaders that you have in your campuses, in your departments, leading those ministries, that would be the Scrum meeting that would happen there at that campus. Okay, then we'd have now the service programming team. That's the third team. Okay, the service programming team would be the service programming director that would happen at each one of these our campuses. Somebody responsible for overseeing the service programming. This is the creative team, the music, the media, the tech team. All of that. So whoever's responsible for that would be the service programming. So they would meet with the music director. They would meet with the person responsible for, the video or the media elements. That would be the sound, tech, lighting, all that person. Anybody that is responsible for what happens on the stage at any of our campuses, that would be that meeting and the vision of being able to get that done. So that would be that team. Okay, and they would meet there. Then we'd have the fourth team would be our communications team. This one's a little bit different, but this is going to be help us in an immense way across the organization. So the communications team would then be the person that is responsible for communications at the campus, and we want to set up people that are going to be responsible for overseeing the communications at the campus, which would be anybody responsible for the website or updates to the website that is specific to your campuses, social media, Facebook, Instagram, all the rest of it. Updates responsible what we need to communicate to get stuff up on social media. Internal communications is what do we need to communicate, email or whatever to our people, social media, update the Facebook group, whatever it might be. We're seeing that. And then Flywheel and Flywheel implementation of when we come into series and communicating that and sending out emails and notifications and all that. That's the communications team that at each campus they would then meet, leading us to team number 5. The team number 5 is going to be our missions team. Okay, so missions team is now, this is my city care, this is not for sale representative, and this is missions, traveling overseas missions that we have in our teams. And this would be somebody who's responsible for maybe your My City Care point person which also we're going to be pushing not for sale a lot more as a church and doing things locally that way as well. Missions and any missions trip that we have coming up, all of that would be the missions team, okay? And they would meet at the campus. And then we'd have the sixth team, the final one would be the operations team. And the operations team would then consist of an administrator, okay, somebody who's responsible for finance per campus, and then HR. And they would have their Scrum. So that's basically the overview of the teams. Now watch that. Those 6 categories of how things work. Now, what would happen is, this is what I envision, is that each one of those teams would have their product owner. They'd have a representative of each team. Okay, that at each of the campuses, they'd have their meetings on Monday and kind of set that all up. A representative or the Scrum Master, I'd recommend the Scrum Master from that team. Okay, at each one of your campuses, you'd have all 6 at your campuses, and some of the campuses saying, well, how do we do this? We don't have all those teams. We'll work with you on all of that. But you'd have potentially all 6 of those sprints running simultaneously and working at those teams. A representative or the Scrum Master from each one of those teams would then meet with the campus pastors, for instance, would meet with their pastoral team. Then they would meet with the campus pastors at the My Victory team. So all 6 campuses, including online, would meet, and they would do that meeting. A representative would meet with that group, and they would talk about the stuff that would happen and the to-do lists and the backlog that would happen for all the campuses. A representative from that campus pastors would then meet with the exec team, which would meet with myself, and so I'd have a Scrum myself with 6 of team members, a campus pastor representative, the family ministries representative, service program representative, communication representative, missions representative, and operations. So this is how this would look. There would be sprints happening for the campus pastors pastorally at their level. There would be sprints happening with the campus pastors, and anything that might happen, it'd probably be a minimal amount of things that would happen at that level. There would be and then there'd be executive sprint that all of this. And we communicate all the way from campus to the group to then overseeing. And vision would flow again from my sprint, the executive team sprints, down to the campuses, down to the specific implementation at each one of your campuses. Same thing with the family ministries. Each children's pastor, family of children with pastor, pastor of family with children, would then have the meeting at their campus. A representative from that would represent with all the children's ministries at all 6 of our campuses. Would then meet with a representative, would meet with me and represent your guys' needs, and any impediments or organizational problems that happen. It should, and this is what happens with large organizations and research with Scrum, is that if you have an impediment that you can't solve at the local level, you can maybe solve it with the larger group, the campus level, the campuses level. If that can't be solved, it can be solved at the executive level. And we should be able to solve and remove any impediments and problems within the organization within 24 hours as the meetings flow and as we be able to do this. For most of you, you'll have one daily stand-up. You'll have one meeting at the beginning of the week with the to-do list, and that meeting doesn't take long, just kind of list all this kind of stuff, especially when we get into routine of all this kind of stuff. Communication would be there. Anything that's blocking you, anything that's in the way, you could be able to deal with at that level. If it can't get solved there, it gets moved on. And some of you who are going to be the Scrum Masters at that level would then have to go to the second meeting. And those of you representatives, some of you, a few of you, 6 of you in our whole organization might have 3 meetings in a day, in the stand-ups. If you're doing the local one, the organizational one, and then the executive one, the 6 of you would have 3 meetings. 3 meetings, 15 minutes a day, still is minimizing our meetings and still keep improving our communication, our focus, and all of that. There are going to be lots of questions that you're going to have and lots of things that we need to talk about. And we want to get to those questions. We're going to be working this and working with you through this, but I hope you understand and get an idea of how this system will work, and we would love to get to work with you and making this better, more efficient for our vision to stay more focused.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of GoCast. We hope you feel inspired and better equipped to take your community for Christ. Make sure to subscribe to receive each new episode as it's released. Let's go and break the stat together.